This episode is sponsored by the tongue twister, though this is. It is sponsored by, thanks Stevie, the Mick Commitments, the Scottish saviours of soul. Go check them out, folks. Hello and welcome back to Film Pro Productivity and Success, the podcast that aims to give film pros and other creative people, all creative people really, let's face it, the chance to have a more focused, effective and happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is episode 152. It's the FCUKWIT Factor. Sometimes I feel that the world is made up of sensible people who know the plot and bloody idiots who don't. Terry Pratchett, unquote. So, I ran a poll a couple of years ago to ask if I should swear in the show, and the overwhelming response, not from everyone, but from 99% of listeners, was that I should. So, I'm just going to fair warn you that this episode is considerably more sweary than other shows that I've done. So, you have been warned. My only concern really at this point is that the podcast overlords may find even my deliberately misspelled title offensive and ban the episode. And the theme of today's show is really quite an important element of productivity, so I may chicken out and change the title to something less explicit by the time this airs. We shall see. And another thing I'll actually add is, if you're a cat lover wondering why I'm seemingly abusing a kitty on the promotional image for this one, the cat is not the fuckwit that I'm talking about, but the cat's face reflects my own face whenever I realise, usually too late, that I have been working with one of them. The fuckwit factor is not something generally discussed, but it's something that I've faced so often that I simply just had to include it in a show. I've had it written down for a couple of seasons now. It sits in the area of toxic people to avoid, and that's a subject that's always been a popular one here. And I named it in this colourful title as it has left me deeply in the shit on numerous occasions, as these idiots, if they make their way onto a project of yours, will drive you to distraction too. For those of you not quite in the know, the term fuckwit is a slang that's both offensive and vulgar, and it's used as an insult to describe someone who is perceived as incompetent. I asked ChatGPT or ChatGPT, I can never remember what it is, ChatGPT to help me define what a fuckwit is, and it also added that due to its offensive nature, it's strongly advisable to avoid using such language, especially in professional or respectful communication context. So I do hope you will forgive me for it. But with that said, and with the full knowledge that this might offend, the fuckwit factor is this. It's when someone that you believe to be competent takes on a given task and not only messes it up, but drags you down with them. No amount of evidence will ever persuade an idiot. Mark Twain, unquote. A time will come, if it's not already something you've experienced, when someone will come along who presents as a tremendous supporter. They will have the skills and the talent that you've been so desperately seeking, and the chances are they're going to be really quite a nice person too. Only as time goes on, though, will you eventually realise that this person doesn't know what they're doing. Only when you have been figuratively hung, drawn and quartered by the chaos this person has caused your project or your business, will you eventually realise that this person, lovely though they are, is not what they seem to be. Only then will you realise that you have been duped by the fuckwit factor. I once cast someone in a film. They were a lovely person and a good laugh, and their dream was to be an actor. So I took a chance on them, as they were passionate and intelligent and extremely supportive of what I was doing. And they auditioned, they presented well, and I thought, this is going to be great. But then when the time came for them to step in front of a camera, however, we had one major issue. Everything was ready, by the way. The other actors were there, the crew, the location was locked, and everyone was standing by. It was all lit. Everything was there. And they stepped in front of the camera, and we hit a slight snag because they hadn't learned any of the lines. Not one of them. They knew none of the lines. And I then tried to work with them to get things going, but it was really no good. They really didn't know what they were doing. They were incapable of performing off the cuff. They were incapable of learning the lines quickly. And I was left high and dry. I was left in a situation where I had no choice but to just cut the scenes. And that was a nightmare, as I'd stepped right into the FCUKWIT Factor. The gap in the story was never picked up. We never reshot it. It was too late to recast, as this person had already appeared in other scenes with no dialogue. They were already established. And I simply had to tailor what I had to make it work. It was a fucking nightmare. And I had well and truly, unwittingly suffered from my first experience of the FCUKWIT Factor. The worst kind of idiot is one who doesn't think they're an idiot. Jeff Garlin, unquote. A friend of mine had a similar experience with the FCUKWIT Factor. Another lovely fuckwit, but a fuckwit nonetheless. They were put in charge of some expensive equipment on a job and were given specific instructions on how to use it correctly, and also in general terms on what to do and what not to do in certain scenarios. And little did my friend realise, however, that he was dealing with a fuckwit. This person, again, presented very well. They presented, in fact, as an expert. But sadly, to my friend's cost, he discovered all too late that this was not exactly true. Specifically, they had been instructed never to leave the equipment unattended under any circumstances. But you can probably see where this is going. They did. And whilst they were away, the damage was done. The equipment was totally destroyed, in fact, rendered completely unusable and unfixable. Only at that point, when all was lost, did my friend recognise that he had fallen into the trap of the FCUKWIT Factor. And I don't want to give too many of my own experiences here, but I have had many, many experiences like this. I want to be careful, though, because some of these people are still in my life. I don't give them any responsibility. I don't include them in projects necessarily. But there's people that I think are nice people who are just completely incompetent. They're nice people, but they're fuckwits, you know? And time and time again, I've relied on someone who presents well, who convinces me, in fact, that they're an expert in their field, only for me to realise too late that they have wasted my time, that they don't know what they're doing. And this is all so much more just than time wasting. A fuckwit will not only waste your time, but they will destroy your chances of success along with it. There's nothing more dangerous than a resourceful idiot. Scott Adams, unquote. I think I've given this example before. I've not written down it in my notes, but another thing happened to me. It's almost unbelievable, but it honestly happened. I was directing an outdoor event, a big outdoor event. Thousands of people were involved, and there was a drama element to it. It was a lantern procession, so we've got like 2,500 people, something like that, involved, and I had a drama element to it. So I was directing action that involved giant backpack puppets and all lit inside. It was all very cool and quite tricky. But I was young enough to not worry that it could all go horribly wrong, and it went fantastically. that was the positive thinking I talked about an episode or two ago. But anyway, the story was about Saint Columba, Scottish saint, and there's loads of stories about how he got his sainthood, and Saint Columba had an enemy who was a wizard. They were kind of lots of religious figure now. They were kind of regarded as wizards or whatever at the time, in so much as what we know about this was true and not made up. But anyway, he had an enemy who was a wizard, and he was regarded as a wizard. So I was going to have a point where the two wizards fight each other. These are backpack puppets, about 12 foot tall. St. Columba's got a magic sword. And I got an artist who was working on the production to build the backpack puppet for the enemy, for the wizard. And you literally won't believe this when I tell you. So yeah, I asked this person to make us a backpack puppet of an evil wizard, And so I was doing other things. There was tons and tons of other stuff going on, and I didn't monitor it perhaps as closely as I should. And that's one key thing I would say is you won't know people are a fuckwit until it's too late. So if you get any doubts at all, do monitor people quite closely. Anyway, I saw this puppet coming together. It takes a few days to build these things. And I was like, that doesn't look like a wizard at all. Anyway, they finally kind of presented it, and they hadn't made a wizard. They'd made a badger, a giant 12-foot badger. I'm not making it up, and it sounds like I'm making it up. Anyway, they made a giant badger to fight with St. Columba in this giant outdoor event. And I had to go with it. There was nothing else to do. He was supposed to fire lightning bolts out of his hands, but they decided to have him shoot badger bolts instead of lightning bolts. So they made little badger heads with windsocks in the back of them with a light inside. So that's what flew out of their hands. Again, I have to say, I'm not making this up. So basically, I said to them, why did you build a badger and not an evil wizard? And they said, it is a wizard. It is an evil wizard. I read the stories. And I was like, okay. They're like, I read the stories, and St. Columba once fought the wizard, and the wizard, to get away, turned into a badger and ran under a hedge and escaped. And I was like, that's very interesting, but the audience don't know this. All the audience are going to see is St. Columba beating up a badger. They're never going to understand that badger is an evil wizard. They're just not going to get it. Anyway, I had to go ahead with this. And it didn't cause that much harm. It didn't bring me down, but it was certainly hilarious. But, you know, I have to mark that one up to the FCUKWIT factor as well. I do blame myself, though, for just not monitoring them very closely. Anyway, let me move on. Usually these fuckwits will only present as what they truly are well after you have been hung out to dry. But here are some management strategies that might help you to handle such people more effectively and perhaps discover them sooner. Number one would be to set clear boundaries. Establish and communicate your boundaries. Let the person know what is acceptable and what is not in terms of time and interference with your work. Number two would be assertive. Communicate your concerns directly and assertively. Express how their actions are affecting your work and time, but without being aggressive. Number three might be to prioritize your tasks. Focus on what's important. Good old productivity here. If their actions are hindering your progress, prioritize your tasks and concentrate on what needs to be done first. Number four, limit interaction. If possible, minimize the time spent with this person. When you do interact, keep it focused and on topic. Number five, document interactions. Keep a record of instances where this person has wasted your time or disrupted your work. This documentation, if you're working in a larger organization, can be useful if you need to escalate the issue to a supervisor or whatever. Number six, look for support. If a problem persists, consider discussing it with a supervisor or your HR department or whatever. And sometimes external intervention might be necessary to resolve such issues. I'm listing this in this way. I'm aware that a lot of people are freelancers or just creative people. I'm trying to make this broad enough that people that work in the film and television industry might be able to make some sense of it. Anyway, number seven is stay professional. Regardless of the situation, maintain your professionalism. Avoid personal attacks or emotional responses. And number eight, reflect on the impact. Consider whether there might be a misunderstanding or miscommunication, as would probably happen to me with the badger wizard thing. And reflect on how you might be contributing to the situation yourself and what changes you could make. Number nine, I'd say develop some coping strategies. Find ways to manage your stress and frustration with what's happening. This might include taking breaks or practicing mindfulness or seeking support from colleagues or mentors. And finally, plan your future interactions with these people. If you know you'll have to interact with them in future, plan and stay focused on your objectives. I mean, that suggests that these people are not nice people. Some of them, in my experience, specifically dealing with the FCUKWIT factor, these people are usually quite nice. They just don't know they're utterly rubbish. They just don't get it. They don't have high-level thinking. It's just not there. Anyway, I'm sighing as I write that list down, as it's often too late by the time that you discover someone is a fuckwit. But sticking to those guidelines, that might help you to protect yourself when the time you do realise that you're in trouble comes around. The best bit of advice, I think, on this that I found during research anyway came from Ronnie Apteker, who says, hire slowly and fire fast. I've heard that many, many times, but in this situation, it really stands out. Even if someone presents as brilliant, check their references and look at samples of their work. If they don't check out, then give them a wide berth. I recently checked someone's references who said they had I don't want to be too specific on this, but don't want to identify who the person is, who said they had a certain qualification in stage combat, a very, very high one in British Academy of Dramatic Combat in terms of an advanced class. Of course, when I scratched the surface of that, questioned them about it, they hadn't trained with the BADC. They didn't even know the BADC existed. They just said they were at this level in stage combat. And what I eventually realised is they'd done throughout a year about 6 to 10 days of training on stage combat, and really were not very experienced at all. Unfortunately, that person had already been cast by the production, so I had to work that one through. They were very, very nice, and we got it done, and they actually were fairly competent to a point. It's just that, everything they'd said about themselves that kind of got them the job proved to be completely untrue. So that could have put us all in a bit of a fuckwit situation. Anyway, he turned out not to be a fuckwit, that one. So I think I've likely made my point here with this one. If one of these people gets too close to you, they will destroy whatever you're doing. They will likely take you down with them, and it will take you an inordinate amount of time, money, and effort to set things straight again. So please, folks, be aware and respond quickly to, if it arises, the fuckwit factor. Let me take a moment to ask you to subscribe to the podcast on your preferred app, please. I really think that subscription is important, because I typically release episodes in blocks of 12, 3 months on, 3 months off. So subscribing ensures that you won't miss any shows when those gaps happen. Also, please do consider leaving a review on iTunes or Spotify. Reviews on Apple Podcasts are particularly influential. That's the place that most podcast advisors say you want to have a good rating on, and you want ratings to come in regularly. So I've got a good rating there already, but I probably haven't had a review in 6 months, so please jump on and give us a hand with that. Basically, this all significantly impacts the algorithms that promote and suggest podcast content to other listeners. Thanks again, folks, though, for just listening to the show, for spending your valuable time with me. I really do appreciate it. Today's final thought on the matter comes from Woody Allen, who said, "Who's the bigger idiot, the idiot or the idiot who gets fooled by the idiot?" I'll let you ponder the answer to that one. Now take control of your own destiny, keep on shooting, and join me next time on Film Pro Productivity and Success. The music that you can hear right now is Adventures by Ehumitsu, and the executive producer for this show, this whole season, is Kris Sommerville of Frontline Kit UK, uniform hire for TV and film. You can see the full show notes, the full transcript, only on the official website, filmproproductivity.com, so please do go check it out there. But please do also follow us on Twitter at FilmProProdPod or on Facebook at FilmProProductivity. Please continue to support the show, folks, by subscribing, spreading the word, and leaving an awesome review.